This year, it's all about Trump, and of course, it continues to be about AI. But there's one constant, and that is the hunt for chai and hot samosas. And that is where you will find all of India Inc. And we've brought them together here for chai and samosas and some charcha as well. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for joining us here. Before I talk about the outlook for India and the outlook on the budget, very quickly, let me sum up the mood that you've picked up here in Davos. And Rajiv, let me start by asking you, on the back of the conversations that you've had so far, the mood as far as the global economy is concerned and the mood on India.
I've never seen so much of positivity, especially from the US companies, US CEOs. They're very bullish. They feel there will be a lot of thrust to make investments in the US, and also a lot of simplification and laws, lots of opportunities. So the focus is just on growth right now. So the questions that everyone is asking, okay, how do we grow faster? Or in some cases, how do we start growing back again? So I think that's the one big change.
So the unleashing of animal spirits is happening in America, or is expected to happen in America?
Definitely it's happening in America. I think in India, this story has been going on for the last many years, but I would say more from a global context. I think that theme is very, very strong. As far as India is concerned, I would say there are, I can bracket this into maybe 2 or 3 different kinds of conversations. One are people who have global capability centers.
Yeah.
I think they are very excited.
Yeah.
They continue to grow. They're very happy with the output, and they want to continue to accelerate the growth there. The second, to me, which was really interesting, is when I talked to the companies who have set up manufacturing in India.
Right.
It has taken them more time to set up, more than what they anticipated, but once they have set up, I think, and once they've gone through the skill challenge,
right,
the output, the productivity, the cost curves, and they're looking at scaling up more and more and more. So I think that's been, to me, that was everyone who has set up manufacturing is actually quite positive and wants to do more.
Okay.
I think there is some worry that, is the growth going to come back in the way everyone estimated? Because in the last 2 quarters, it slowed down. Will the 7.5% come back or not? And I think that's a conversation that on India. I think that's one conversation for people who are much more deeper already and deeper into India. For those who are not in India, I think it's a big opportunity. They're looking at that.
Okay, so that's interesting. Once into Indian manufacturing, they want to, of course, continue to accelerate their spends there. And joining us now is also Shobna Kamineni. How are you, Shobna? Good to see you here in Davos. But and importantly, as you pointed out, that the GCC story continues to be a very strong story, and India's integration into the knowledge economy globally, of course, continues. I mean, I've been talking to global CEOs, and everyone has specifically called out India for the fact that their headcount outside of the home headquarters is the highest in India, when we talk about GCCs. But CB, let me come to you now. Davos, the mood on the global economy and India.
So I think let me take it in the reverse order from what Rajiv did. So India, I think, upbeat, and there is an understanding that India is a story which is of states of India.
Yeah.
The next story of India is the states of India, and I think that pitch, as you are seeing in Davos, is becoming stronger. The other part is, of course, if you see, it continues to be a place where in fact, in side conversations when we were discussing Trump, as you mentioned, there is a lot of individual companies I saw around the globe talking very positively, and it was surprising to see individual companies even from Europe being very, very upbeat about US economy picking up, which would lead. And there, the conversations was really US economy picking up and the emerging economies like India, Indonesia, and attracting, that it would continue to attract capital. So I think these critical features, and India being not only just the demand in India, but also Indian companies, both Indian and foreign, operating in India and operating out of India, and which is being able to connect with the world. I think that's many such stories coming out, and things like digitization, those platforms which has benefited a large number of people in India, inclusivity, which India has actually benefited from, and which has triggered Indian economy. I think these dialogues are pretty much strong, in this year's Davos.
Amit, I want to come to you with one of the other aspects that is part of the conversations here in Davos, and that has to do with trust. And people want to do business with trusted partners, whether it is manufacturing or defense. Now, from your point of view, and you have a foot in both, manufacturing as well as the defense sectors, what are you picking up on? What is the kind of progress that you see? What's the kind of momentum build up on both these?
So let's talk about manufacturing first. And I want to elaborate on what Rajiv said. The US focus of the Trump presidency is going to be on build back better and build back stronger. He wants to fix the infrastructure, build a tomorrow ready infrastructure. So if you look at the figures of energy, they want to almost double the energy production, including coal, including gas, including nuclear. They want, and to do that, and to build all or renew all their bridges, airports, put in rail systems, all that will spur construction equipment companies, energy companies, companies like Cummins, Caterpillar, and many others. And these are companies which have global supply networks. They will have a huge cascading effect to companies in India, companies like ours, which are big suppliers to them. And this is going to be a big, like a virtuous cycle that's going to take place. That is one. Second is, India and the US have now, with this CEPT agreement, moved closer to working strategically in defense. So as the US is going to realign its position with NATO, whatever that may be, I see a huge opportunity for India and Indian companies to also be a player in the supply chain to these geographies in NATO. Obviously, being an Indian company, we have to, be cognizant that it cannot be to the detriment of some of our long-standing partners, but the capability exists and that we can be a player globally. So I think these are both opportunities, going beyond just Europe. Africa is an opportunity, South America is an opportunity, and Southeast Asia is an opportunity.
The theme here also as part of the CII pitch to Davos is that partner with us to be able to steer your future through a land of opportunity, which of course is India. You want to make a point?
I just want to make one more point, that the connect that India and especially through the Prime Minister have made with the Global South especially is very instrumental in promoting our strategic businesses outside of India. That's really a big positive.
That's a big positive. Prashant, let me come to you now with what you'd like to add in terms of the opportunities as well as the potential for nurturing and furthering future partnerships.
Yeah, I just look at it slightly differently. And obviously we've covered the points about America, the growth in America because of Trump and the impact Trump's is going to have on the rest of the world, including Europe, which is quite worried, and China and all of that. But if you think about the capital cycle happening right now, this is about the first time in the history that whether it's the US, whether it is Europe, whether it is Asia, whether it is China, we are all investing at the same time. In the past, it was 70s and 80s when most of the infrastructure and most of the capability investment happened for building out the country. It was 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s when Europe and the US was building, and then in the last 20 years it's been more the developing nations. But this is the first time that because they want to replace, build newer infrastructure because of new technologies, what have you, it's a global capital investment cycle. And that, it's a question of how we as in India can take advantage of.
And how can the Indian private sector take advantage of it? Because the heavy lifting as far as capex is concerned is largely government.
Exactly. So how can we take advantage? We also have the China plus one factor. So in addition to the capital investment cycle, there is a huge supply chain opportunity of making in India and exporting to the world. And really the question is, how can we, I don't think we are doing enough as a country. We can do more. And the kind of growth which we are showing today can be much better. And the opportunity available, which we can hear every day. I mean, the US is spending $200 billion on data centers every year. I mean, just one number. They're spending, so the kind of money being spent on energy transition, electric vehicles, just you can name it. replacing all the infrastructure which has got built in the last 40, 50 years is massive. And it's really up to us to see how we can take advantage of it.
I'll come back to what more we can do in just a second, but Jaidev, let me come to you with the point that CB made, that India will be driven by growth in its states. We have 6 states being represented here, and they're competing for investments. And, the fact of the matter is that everyone's positioned slightly differently. But what do you foresee as the possibilities arising from this competitive federalism, this cooperative federalism, which is on display here in Davos, and what it could potentially mean as far as growth is concerned? I mean, Revant Reddy telling me that he wants to add $1 trillion, to the overall aspiration that the Prime Minister has. Chandrababu Naidu saying the same thing as well. What will this open up and unlock as an opportunity?
I think it's a very important point, because actually I was on the Commerce Committee when we decided that the ease of doing business should be opened up to the states and make the states compete with each other. And it seemed like a good idea, and now we know that it was a good idea, because once you open up that competition, healthy competition among the states to make ease of doing business much easier, they're able to attract a lot of investments. I think the states that have been able to do it well, including both the Telugu states and quite a few other industrialized states as well, have all done an excellent job. I was just watching a panel with Revant Reddy Garu, Chandrababu Naidu Garu, and the Maharashtra CM Fadnavis Garu, all 3 of them sitting in the same panel. And one interesting comment was they not only share borders, but they share rivers. The rivers Krishna and Godavari starts in Maharashtra, goes through Telangana, and then lands into the ocean in Andhra Pradesh. So they're talking about how do we utilize those resources in a cooperative manner, not just competing with each other. But we have this, huge water resources that we're sharing, many other resources that we're sharing. They started talking about how do we actually cooperate on all of these things. So that's very good dialogue to hear from the states. So it's cooperative, competitive, and it's going to take the country forward.
It's been over 2 decades of tracking the global power shifts at the World Economic Forum. Starting from our first story reported 20 years ago to last year's groundbreaking coverage of the world's most important economic event. From discovering era-defining ideas to connecting you with the world's visionary thinkers and doers. From decoding blueprints for growth to driving collaboration to make a better future. We've been bringing you a wealth of information through 20 seasons. Tune in to Davos Diaries at Davos 2025, live and exclusive on India's most trusted business news platform, CNBC TV 18. It's been over 2 decades of tracking the global power shifts at the World Economic Forum. Starting from our first story reported 20 years ago to last year's groundbreaking coverage of the world's most important economic event. From discovering era-defining ideas to connecting you with the world's visionary thinkers and doers. From decoding blueprints for growth to driving collaboration to make a better future. We've been bringing you a wealth of information through 20 seasons. Tune in to Davos Diaries at Davos 2025, live and exclusive on India's most trusted business news platform, CNBC TV 18. It's been over 2 decades of tracking the global power shifts at the World Economic Forum. Starting from our first story reported 20 years ago to last year's groundbreaking coverage of the world's most important economic event. From discovering era-defining ideas to connecting you with the world's visionary thinkers and doers. From decoding blueprints for growth to driving collaboration to make a better future. We've been bringing you a wealth of information through 20 seasons. Tune in to Davos Diaries at Davos 2025, live and exclusive on India's most trusted business news platform, CNBC TV 18. It's been over 2 decades of tracking the global power shifts at the World Economic Forum. Starting from our first story reported 20 years ago to last year's groundbreaking coverage of the world's most important economic event. From discovering era-defining ideas to connecting you with the world's visionary thinkers and doers. From decoding blueprints for growth to driving collaboration to make a better future. We've been bringing you a wealth of information through 20 seasons. Tune in to Davos Diaries at Davos 2025, live and exclusive on India's most trusted business news platform, CNBC TV18. It's been over 2 decades. Shobna, let me come to you and ask you to one, tell us about what's happening here in Davos, what you're picking up in terms of the global mood, but also importantly, the areas for future partnership. And, I've been hearing a lot from people who are working in the healthcare space about the progress that India is making on digital health. And you've, of course, been part of the World Economic Forum's committee that's looking at that. I mean, a global pathfinder is what Shyam Bishen, articulated the digital health story from India. What are the possibilities that you see as we move forward?
Really, there's so much focus on AI here because they think that's going to be, that unless a forum like this that brings together people from all over the world, all walks of life, from the NGOs to the social sector to large businesses, they realize that AI is the single factor in the next decade that's going to make a huge exponential change. If we think that AI is just better one-step procedure, not happening. It's really it's going to be the biggest transformation. So how everybody does business, how infrastructure gets spent, built, people get this thing. So what's India's opportunity in this? I think the good thing is that that our governments, the state governments, the private sector, all of them recognize this early. And one of the good things the testaments to India's infrastructure of people strength is the GCCs. Look at that. We have almost 2,000 GCCs. When I spoke to people, CEOs from the US, they said 20% of their workforce is in India. Yeah. And it's not for grunt work. It's for really good capability, so innovation. So more of that happening, then we'll get those data centers. We'll need them. So I think India also has that. While we're picking up the challenges of consumption, we're picking up the story of this, we do have huge opportunity in showing the world that we have the most skilled people, the talent, and they should come here. So I think that's a big one, AI talent. And the third one I want to leave you with, because I see so many of my fellow family businesses here with this. For us, it's a compounding story, guys. Don't you think that India, when I was in a strategy meeting, I said, we've been growing 20 years, we've been growing at 20%. With that, I think in India, my kids also will be 20% growth. Which country in the world can actually talk about it with that strength? That is our road. And how we make it happen, it's for all of us that we have to be. The only thing I want to say is, we can't leave it as being exclusive, that 4 of us in the room. We need to really make it, how can 1 billion people, how do we lift all boats? So that's the story that the government is actually playing well. And so I feel good about it. Look at Ayushman Bharat, look at the way that we're doing, the systems, the government, UPI, these are the great stories.
So that's the message coming in from Shobna to the entire panel here. Pull up your socks, gentlemen. That's the message there.
I'm going to pull up the socks.
and very nice blue and white. Very nice blue and white. But Tapan, let me come to you now. And when we spoke, you said insurance, for instance, is a huge area of opportunity. You expect in the next 10 years, maybe there should be 1,000 insurance companies in India. But realistically, on the back of the conversations that you've had so far, are there any apprehensions that people have in terms of what needs to be addressed before they put their money in?
So if you look at it, when I said 1,000, it's a very simple calculation. US has 6,000. No? Even a small country like Singapore would have about 500 insurance companies. India has 70. So there's a huge disparity. There will be. And you heard our corporate leaders talk about that the expansion, the enthusiasm about India, the build happening. So insurance has to happen. No? It follows the economy. If India becomes the third largest economy, insurance industry in India has to become the third largest over time. If that be the case, then obviously you require much more insurance companies than you have currently. We're hearing about the budget presentation in terms of hopefully the insurance reforms happening, the 100% FDI coming, and we're hearing about in terms of opening of distribution coming, and we already have the product simplification happening. So quite a lot of activities happening in the insurance space, which propels this movement of more insurance coming up. But more than that, I think the issue broadly is when we talk of budget, we talk of country, we mostly talk about what has to be done more to propel the growth of the economy. But we rarely talk about what is the leaking bucket. What are the losses because of which the growth is coming down? And how do you plug that? I think there should be a serious discussion on the leaking bucket also.
Okay.
Because in my view, India's growth is over 10%. But because leaking bucket, you actually see it at 6-7%, And how do you plug that? So it reaches much more.
Where do you see the leaks at this point in time?
So if you see, and there are a lot of studies from WHO and other parts, a simple thing like universal health in India would actually propel the GDP growth by 1.5%. A simple thing like covering all SME, MSME in India, again, all these catastrophic losses. And we see this big issue now across the globe. It has a 2% impact on GDP, actually. So you just put on these points, then actually India should be growing over 10 comfortably even now,
And that is actually not just the aspiration, but that's also the need for us to be able to get to a very high, single digit, or at least get to that double digit number. What does ChatGPT have to say about what budget 2025 may hold, Tapan? What is it saying?
So you want to try that?
Yeah, let's try it. Let's try it. He's wearing smart glasses, and so he's exactly. So which is why I said Tapan should do this.
Let me try this. It should be fun. Should have given me some early warning.
I should have given you an early warning, but as Rajiv, are you on ChatGPT or in something else?
No, I'm ChatGPT.
Okay, so let's see. We'll give two different prompts and let's see what ChatGPT comes up with in terms of what budget 2025 is likely to hold, and then that will be a confirmation of sorts once the 1st of February is here on how much ChatGPT can actually
whether it has a seat at the table.
Seat at the table or
Okay,
not.
let's try this.
Okay.
Here, ChatGPT.
Hey there, how can I help you today?
Yeah, ChatGPT, I'm in Davos, and people are asking about the budget in India. What are the expectations? What should I answer them?
You can highlight that the Indian budget is expected to focus on economic growth, infrastructure development, and social welfare. You might also mention the emphasis on digital innovation, sustainability, and policies that aim to support both urban and rural communities. This approach will help convey a balanced and forward-looking perspective.
Yeah, but what are the 3 top things that the corporate India should ask the government for the budget?
Corporate India might focus on 3 key areas: tax relief and incentives, requesting reductions in corporate tax rates and more incentive for investments in innovation and infrastructure. Ease of doing business, advocating for streamlined regulations, faster clearances, and simplified compliance to encourage growth. Infrastructure and digital transformation, seeking more government investment in physical and digital infrastructure to enhance connectivity and productivity.
You should have done this at the beginning.
Simi, what are you going to do now? Simi, your job is to outsource to ChatGPT.
Thank him first. Thank you, ChatGPT, for answering.
Well, with that, I'm afraid we are out of time here in Davos, not out of ideas by a long shot or wish lists. And of course, the wish list only gets longer every year. But the hope is that there will be measures in the budget to spur and accelerate growth, and of course also provide some relief at this point in time. And of course, the hope is that the MPC will deliver with a rate cut as well as a CRR cut that CB pointed out because liquidity continues to be tight. the message, the overarching message that India Inc. is sending out is one of confidence and also one of being open not just to invest in areas where they believe that there could potentially be opportunities, but also to partner with global companies, to partner with global partners to look at the global opportunities that post-Trump era opens up. Many thanks to all of my panelists for joining us here on the Samosa and Chai Pe Charcha. But thank you very much. Have a great rest of the week here in Davos, and we will see you on the 1st of February to see what the budget delivers. Thanks very much for your time. From all of us here at CNBC TV 18, it's goodbye from Davos for now. We'll see you again after a very short break. Welcome back. The conversations continue here at Davos 2025. We're celebrating two milestones, 25 years of CNBC TV 18 and 20 years of covering the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. And joining us now is a man who's also celebrating a very significant milestone. HCL Tech has turned 25